Hi, I'm Susan Anderson Newham, Early Learning Supervising Librarian for the Pierce County Library System, and I'm going to be talking about some areas of math fun. And so this whole project is really supporting you in incorporating math concepts and ideas seamlessly into every book that you share with children. We call it mathematizing the books. It's really fun and it's really easy. In my portion of this video, I'm going to talk about the three main areas that we want to focus on in preschool math in order to give children a really strong foundation for their math learning for their whole lives. So the three areas are numbers and operations, geometry and spatial sense, and measurement. These are not the only areas of math, but these are the three that are really important for a preschool foundation. So I'm going to go into detail about each one of those and how we can use books to support that learning. So numbers and operations, what do we mean by that? Of course, counting, recognizing numerals. And in counting, there's cardinal counting, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's also ordinal counting, which is first, second, third, fourth. So we want to share books with children that sometimes have these built into the story, just so we can help children identify cardinal and ordinal counting. And I will say that in English, I want to always remind people that for preschool especially, when we're cardinal counting, we want to especially focus on those numbers, those tricky numbers 11 to 19. In English, unfortunately, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 21, 22, 23, 24, 31, 32, 33, 34, 11, 12, 13. They break the pattern. And so that's why children get lost a lot of times when they enter the teens and start counting, they get lost because they're different numbers. So we have to give them much practice counting, especially beyond 10 up to 20. So that's just a caveat there when we talk about counting. And that's where books can come in handy, because a lot of times you can count things on a page and they will go above 10. Counting blocks in the block area, counting the dominoes that we have in your set. So those are just a couple of the ways, but we want to really give children a lot of practice with that. The other areas of numbers and operations, quantity. We're trying to help children understand quantity and to also understand one-to-one correspondence, so that when we lay out three things and we say three, that we mean there are three of something, that it's a quantity. And the numeral 3 can signify, is a symbol for those three things. So these are sophisticated concepts, but we can do this through play and also through the way that we share books and the way we identify quantity in books. Look, there are 2 sheep on this page. Those very simple observations really help support children's quantity learning. We also want to help children recognize sets. That's one of the reasons we included the dice because the dice is a natural set and it takes children a lot of practice. So if we play games and we use the dice, you're giving children a lot of practice to begin recognizing sets of objects, in this case dots, but that's a really important skill. Comparisons are another one of numbers and operations. You do this a lot when you have them sort things. There is more in this pile and less in this pile, but you can use books for that too. Are there more on this page or on this page? For instance, in this wonderful book, Stack the Cats, it has 4 cats teeter and 5 cats totter. So just by looking at this page, we can say, which page has more cats? Very simple thing to do, but you're really just pointing out more and less, and that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cats on this page and 1, 2, 3, 4 on that. So then we're again getting back to the number. Very simple to do during story time. So that's just one way of numbers and operations. So the second area that I talked about was geometry and spatial sense. And geometry and spatial sense is shape identification. We want to, in this area, we really want to focus on triangles because a circle is always a circle and a square is always a square, but a triangle looks different. Triangles may look very different. They may have all equal sides. They may have one side really long and two sides sort of medium. The point may go down. The bottom may be flat. But we know that if there are three sides and three angles, it's a triangle. So shape identification is a big part of geometry, and also identifying those words, corners, angles, getting children familiar with those concepts as well. And spatial sense. Spatial sense is sort of where I am in relationship to what is around me, where locating certain objects, maps are a wonderful way to help develop spatial sense in children. So those books that you share that have a map in them, take the time to maybe talk with the children about the map and what the map symbolizes and how people use maps and where the children have seen maps. So that's a great way to help develop geometry and spatial sense. And you don't have to have a shape book. I wanted to get that across too, that like in this book, Who Am I?, which is a wonderful book, a peek through pages book of endangered animals. So it's got a lot of really amazing science learning in it. But the way that the cutouts are, they're all in the shape of a circle. So you could talk about the circle and look through the circle and then see the page. And then on this page, the next page, here we have lots of math opportunities. You could count the circles. You can compare the circles, which one's bigger, which one's smaller, which is the smallest circle, which is the biggest circle. And I have to turn this page because I can't pronounce this animal, but it's really amazing looking. So really any book, every book has shapes. In fact, every book is a shape. So at the very least, you can do that. You can talk about the shape of the book. So that's geometry and spatial sense. And the third area of preschool math learning that we really, really want to try to support is measurement. And so, of course, that's distance. It's how long things are, how short things are. It's tall and short. It's heavy and light. It's big and little. It's enormous. And there are some books that have great vocabulary for that. But really, you can find comparisons in just about any book. And you can find things to measure in just about any book. Who's nearest in an illustration? Who's biggest in an illustration? Our animal books are always little teeny animals and big animals, and so you can do comparisons like that. And books like this one is another new one, The Three Billy Goats Buenos. It has math in it because it's the Three Billy Goats graph. But it also has some really wonderful ways we can support preschool math. You can compare. You're comparing the billy goats and the terrible troll. And also which billy goat went first, which billy goat went second. So we've got some ordinal counting, which is really nice. Even though this isn't generally a math book, there's still a lot of math learning in it. And that's what we want. We want to be able to look at every book and say, what area of math could I support with this? Even if it's just a little bit. If you're doing it every day, then your children are really going to have that foundation. It's like talking every day. It becomes a part of the learning at your center. And that's why we have the books that we included in the math kit. We didn't select except for how many, particularly just math books. We want you to look at those books, to use those books and be creative. We know you're going to be more creative than we are in finding ways you can support children's math learning. So that's why we call it mathematizing. We're really trying to mathematize books. So we look for comparisons, we look for shapes, we look for things to count, we look for ordinal counting as well as cardinal counting. We look for 11 to 19, those tricky numbers. And visualization is also a math skill, believe it or not. So, ask children, imagining something before you see it. Imagining how big an elephant is. How big do the children think an elephant is? Starting to visualize those things is actually a part of that math learning. And also making predictions. And this we can do with just about every book. I can guarantee you in almost every book, especially when there's a story, there's a certain point where you can stop and ask the children, what do you think is going to happen? For instance, in this book, Say Hello to Zorro, Mr. Bud is a dog, and he has everything he needs, and his day is exactly the same. He knows what to count on. It's predictable, and there are no surprises ever until one day when his owner brings home a stranger. He says, Mr. Bud, say hello to Zorro. Zorro is moving in. That's a perfect opportunity, I would think, to stop and ask the children, what do you think is going to happen? And then at the end of the book, go back and see if their predictions were correct. That's a big part of math learning too. It's not so much having everything be perfect. It's making predictions and then getting the data and then changing what you thought. And that's really what mathematicians do. So that's a way to mathematize books, really simple, and those 3 foundational areas of preschool math. We just really want you to have fun with the children and enjoy these beautiful books and the fun games, and know that you're putting children on the best path possible in their math learning. Thank you so much for all the work you do.